Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Have to begin this evening's live stream with an important announcement. The votes have been cast, and for those of you who voted to stop slurping, you're going to need to momentarily mute your speakers. And I really have to. I'm not even making this up. It's super hot. My other half just made this for me and put it on my desk. And I like it really, really hot. So it lasts. It doesn't get cold too fast. But it's amazing what an emotive topic it is. Anyway, that's that. Right. Okay, so this evening's video. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining me this late at night. You might see how bloodshot my eyes are. Oh, I made the fatal mistake of having a nap earlier on. I was really tired and I've just woken up feeling really groggy, but I'd already scheduled the live stream. So here I am. Here I am. Who have we got with us this evening? Hi, Tina B, GGFR, Slurptastic. Mark Renato, hi there. Carlos, J Tour, thank you guys. Right, so this evening's video is, unlike the Wednesday workshop, this is a housing market update. And my goal here is to try to give anyone who is currently trying to move or thinking of moving or reconsidering their move, hi Naida, hi Fee, for any of you who are wondering what to do and wondering how the market affects it, I'm trying to provide a bit of interpretation of what's happening in the market there. Now, before we get into it, there's a lot to go to this evening, a lot happening, and actually a real struggle to keep up with it. Before we get into it, I would like to do a quick recap about my position as far as the housing market and house prices are concerned. Don't talk about house prices, Charlie, because that's just a distraction and doesn't affect anything. That's true. But my goal, as I've often repeated, is ultimately my whole career is working towards a home for everyone. And that includes people not losing their homes. And so that includes helping people avoid making bad moving decisions or bad purchase decisions, and then ending up losing their home when things go against them. And if you think things don't go against buyers, let me remind you that according to the Daily Telegraph, there are over 500,000 mortgage borrowers currently on standard variable rates, which they did not plan or expect to be on. And that means circumstances have not gone as they expected. They've been unable to get onto a new fixed rate because they're not qualify or whatever the reason might be. That's 500,000 mortgage payers. That's 500,000 people for whom, even that part hasn't gone right. And when you've never bought a home before, you become understandably fixated on actually making the purchase. You never look beyond it. The goal is to get the home, and you've saved for years, or you've been lucky enough to get gifted a deposit, and finally the freedom of your own place. And it's so exciting, and it's so complicated, and it's so daunting that no one, especially first-time buyers, stops and looks beyond that first purchase. And that's why so many buyers end up buying badly in one way or another and buying themselves into some kind of nightmare. Now, this evening, I'm talking about the market. And what I mean by this is, if you're buying a home, and I'm only here to talk to home movers. I'm not here to talk about investors or developers or anyone that speculates or is in business making money out of the housing market. I am here purely to provide my perspective to people moving home in the hope that it's helpful for you in your decision. And as any of you who've been watching my channel for a while will know, I have been very bearish and pessimistic about the prospects for the UK economy. And I have been very, very vocal about that because I want people to be very cautious before buying. Always buy. Always buy if you need a home, want a home, and have found a home that you want to live in, and you're sure it's not some kind of awful trap, leasehold trap or anything, or a building problem trap, right? Always buy a home. Just don't overpay. And this is where understanding what's happening with the economy and the market comes in, right? Is not overpaying, because if you overpay at a bad time, your risks of it turning into a nightmare, an all-encompassing, life-engulfing nightmare, are much higher. So I'm here to just say, really be careful and take all the following things into consideration. Now, I'm also notorious for my expectation that house prices eventually, on average, with variations, will fall 35%, is the figure that's plucked out of the air, roughly speaking, a third off. And I've always said nominal house prices. And people are going, oh, well, Charlie, it's been 2 years now. It's not happening, is it? It hasn't fallen off. It's certainly... So house prices at the higher end of the market have fallen quite a long way, but there's no index that shows that. But no one even disputes this. Right? You're talking about large, significant price drops at the high end of the market. Okay. 15, 20, 25% falls have already happened nominally. Excuse me. And in some parts of the country, not in all parts of the country, but the high end, the price drops have been at the highest. But because that's a relatively low volume marketplace, it doesn't get that much press. And also, everyone in the housing industry doesn't like to talk about house prices falling. We only like to talk about them going up because we think that's good in the housing industry. We think house prices rising, the faster the better. But actually, anyone with a basic understanding of maths understands that if house prices rise too fast, it ends up bending us all over and stopping us where it hurts as a society. Okay, it just, because there's no point in your house making loads of money if you then can't afford the next one, because that's also gone up too much, or making loads of money and then your kids can't afford a house because house prices have gone up too much. It's a self-defeating thing, right? Modest house price rises, a little bit above inflation, yeah, good, that's a good thing. More than that, ultimately, it's a bad idea. So I'm still of the same opinion of what's going to happen to the economy and to house prices. It may well end up taking far longer than I guessed. And by the way, I was never confident on my timeline. I said peak to trough, probably, I'm guessing about 3 years. Well, we're 2 years in, and I could be wrong, guys. If I'm wrong, it's okay, because it doesn't matter. I'm talking generally about the whole market. I'm not talking about your particular house. I'm not talking about your sale or your purchase. I'm talking about the whole market. So nobody needs to take this personally and get upset and come at me and attack me about it, because, yeah, I could be wrong. And if I end up being wrong, and if when house prices have finished coming down, which I don't think they have yet, even though they've, like, the average indices are showing that they're kind of, and we're about to go into that with Zoopla this evening, kind of not falling that much, there are lots of house places, as we'll see this evening, there are plenty of places where house prices have fallen, are falling, and stuff's getting harder to sell. And there's a lot more stock coming onto the market. So my observations exclude Scotland and Northern Ireland because I have no insight to those markets. My observations are always about the England and Wales market, because that's where my career has been involved with agents in England and Wales, actually a little bit in Scotland, but not at the moment. And that's where my data in Best Agent, on my website, Best Agent. Oh, it's behind that thing, you can't see it. That's where my data comes from as well, England and Wales. So what's happening? What I think is going to happen? In a nutshell, I think the economy is going to continue to get worse. The economy, by the way, keeps being revised down. GDP per head was revised down. Oh, but Charlie, there's going to be massive rate cuts. Yeah, that's going to happen if it happens, because the economy is dying. And if the economy is dying, people are losing their jobs, unemployment's rising. And that, by the way, seems to be happening anecdotally much worse than the official figures suggest, which are always estimates, and the estimates based on surveys. So easy to gloss over and iron out the wrinkles of the official. So I think employment's going to get harder. I think real income, by which I don't mean the technical definition of it, after inflation, I mean when the true costs of household inflation be taken into account, food, energy, rent rises, none of that is counted. The real disposable income is continuing to be eviscerated. We have the most expensive energy almost in the world. That is bad for consumers, and it's even worse for businesses. And look as I might, this government seems determined even to overlook the opportunities that it has. For example, embracing small modular nuclear reactors as a source of very cheap, very reliable, zero carbon energy. Nope. Rolls-Royce is taking orders from other countries, and this spectacularly incompetent government, as I'd said it would be, even worse than the last one, but actually to a degree I never imagined, is going to make very, very sure that they destroy the economy through sheer, utter incompetence. They're not fit. It's nothing to do with policies at the moment. You're talking about a team of people who are not fit to govern, professionally speaking, I mean. Never mind all the scandal stuff. I just mean actual competence in running government. So they're going to actually make the economy worse. There's no doubt about it. No doubt. In my mind, there's no doubt about that. So at an individual level, if you're making a purchase decision, the stability of your job is a major consideration in your future risk factor, right? How stable is your job? Do you have a job where actually it's going to be completely immune from recessionary problems, falling economy, government cuts that might be coming? Are you immune to that, or are you actually potentially at some risk? And you mustn't panic about it, but what you must do is you must just, before you make a massive commitment, just simply ask yourself, what does it look like for me if the worst case happens? What's my worst case scenario? If I buy a home and I need to move in 3 to 5 years, unexpectedly perhaps, and the housing market, house prices haven't gone up, they've actually come down slightly, or maybe come down a long way, or I lose my job, or I need to move and I can't move, or I can't pay my mortgage, is that a scenario I'm willing to accept the risk of happening? If the answer is yes, proceed, because you considered it and you've worked out what your personal worst case scenario is, and everyone's are different, and you're proceeding on that cautious basis, which is hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. The mistake is not preparing for the worst. I'm not trying to talk anyone out of buying a home. Truly, I'm not. Everyone, having a home has got nothing to do with money. It's about having a secure, stable, happy base from which to have a life, grow a life, maybe grow a family. That's the point of having a home, and that's why everyone should have one. I think renting, depending on the quality of the property, the location, and the landlord, renting in some ways is now becoming increasingly more attractive for certain segments of the market in certain parts of the country. Some and some, right? Some and some, but I don't think, especially because right now affordability is gradually improving, right? Prices are not rising faster than wages. Wages are rising faster than house prices at the moment, and that means affordability improving. And mortgage rates are creeping down. So it's all gradually going in the right direction for affordability for first-time buyers. And if lots of landlords are going to sell up their property, that's good news for first-time buyers as well. So that's 15 minutes of me rambling about general stuff. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the news that I think is worth everyone knowing about. Let's start with this story here. Where are we? One moment. There we go. So this story is a company that buys properties for cash, cheap. Like, it's a cheap cash. Hey, we'll buy a property quickly in 7 days or 14 days. They have seen a 1/3 spike, a 33% increase in landlords inquiring about using fast buying property companies, right? And that's been since the announcement of the Renters Reform Bill. A rush of landlords trying to dispose of their properties at speed to avoid being impacted by any upcoming changes, including, of course, people expecting capital gains taxes to change and to hit landlords at the next budget, which is the end of the month. Currently 22,000 tenanted properties for sale in England, but the average time it takes to sell standing at 195 days. That's over 6 months, right? But let's just keep going on this story. This is a survey that was published this week by a company that provides tenant referencing and stuff to to lettings agents and tenants and landlords. And they've just done a survey of 1,500 landlords and lettings agents. And it's the 7th year they've done this state of the market, but the private rent sector market. And they say it's the most negative and depressing one they've seen so far. So landlords are heading for the exit. A huge percent, so more than half of letting agents reported a decrease in the number of available properties. So this is letting agents saying, and 37% said a significant decrease. But almost half of landlords have already sold off some of their stock or are planning to do so the next year. Legislation is driving. When asked what's driving their desire to leave the market, more than half said incoming legislation, such as the Renters' Rights Bill, in particular the abolition of Section 21, was the primary reason. And for those of you who saw my video earlier today about shelter and homelessness, there is now a smoking gun that proves that these government policy changes are leading to an increase in homelessness. Right? This is just, I'm not saying that improvements aren't needed. They definitely are needed. But in having good intentions is not the same as delivering good results. And there's this bizarre phenomenon amongst government and charities that, well, we mean well, and we've all got a plan, and we've all looked at each other and nodded, and we've all ignored the fact that none of us have got any fucking idea how the private rented sector works, and we're going to ignore the people who work in the industry actually know it, because we're just going to go, no, they're all just greedy agents and landlords. They don't know what they're talking about. We know what we're talking about, even though we have no understanding of how the market works at all, and we've never worked in the property market. But let's lobby for policy changes that's going to make lots of people homeless. And then, by the way, this was started by the last government, right? So legislation is driving the landlord exodus, which is driving rents up, and which is driving homelessness up, and which is driving available stock levels down. And they are planning to double down on this legislation. And they're being told what's going to happen, and they're literally going, la, 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 no, we're just going to stick to our plan because we're in government, so we must know what we're doing, or we mean well, and we're do-gooders. And of course, you've got uninitiated tenants who can't afford their rent or can't afford who are annoyed at their landlords going, yeah, beat up the landlords. And they might as well punch themselves in the face. They just don't want to understand, don't want to deal with this fact that if I want an affordable home to rent, it means there's going to need to be a landlord involved. Yeah, sorry. You see me getting carried away again like I did earlier today. You've also got EPC regulations heating up. So over half of landlords said that new rules around energy efficiency standards would be a reason for leaving the sector. And a fifth of those whose properties don't meet the minimum threshold said they aren't prepared to invest anything in upgrading their properties. So 20% of them are going to sell because of the EPCs. Yes, mortgage rates, increased arrears, and tax charges are also driving landlords to sell up. Tenants competing for few properties. Only 12.5% of tenants reported paying more rent for their property than the amount for which it was advertised. 82% paying the advertised price. All right. But price rises put a tighter squeeze. We don't need to go to that. Everyone understands that's happening, right? Rents are going up faster than inflation, and it's causing landlords to evict tenants for no fault, because either they want to sell the property, because if they can't afford to keep it, they can't afford to keep it. Or, in the worst cases, there are landlords who are evicting tenants in order to rent it out for higher rents to people that can afford it if their tenants can't afford it, which is a different and unpleasant factor. Okay, do we have any questions so far about this particular topic? Let's just have a look. Any interesting comments on here? Jay Tors, I qualified as a train driver today. With the way the economy is going, I encourage everyone to get into recession-proof jobs like this over the next 2 years before it's too late. Well done, Jay. I know someone who did that for exactly that reason as well. In a very highly paid job, very stable job. And yeah, that's gonna be a pretty safe career. What else do we have here? Okay, so yeah, we've got some people challenging my to say I'm talking bullshit. I'll come back to those soon. And yes, there is a story about I put a story out on X about pension funds investing in build to rent. Well, that's interesting. Sir Fleshmorph makes an interesting observation, Jay. You're not going to like this. Are train drivers really that safe? Seems like it should be automated pretty easily in the future. Yeah, that's true. The technology already exists, but I think pretty powerful unions are going to put up a lot of resistance to that for quite a long time. Right, let's get into Zoopla's. Okay, now let me just address Mr. Angry. TT says 25-30% drop compared to which period in the past? 10 years ago, 20 years ago? So this is whoever TT on YouTube. I don't recognize the name TT, so maybe you're new. That's what I think. I could be wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. Nothing happens when you're wrong. You're just saying this for clicks and likes. Nope. It's what I really think. It's what I really think. And I still think, I have a strong gut feeling that when this is all over, it may have taken a little longer than I thought, but it's going to be absolutely brutal. And if you want to factor in inflation, there's already been a pretty substantial real terms drop in house values, if not prices, plus the drop in house prices at the higher end. So it's basically, I called the top of the market. Everyone said I was mad. I called it in 2022, early 2022. No one thought, when I first started saying it, no one had seen it because it takes so long for the indices to catch up. Everyone thought I was mad, and everyone saying, no, you don't understand, John. It's supply and demand, and the population is going up. It means house prices can only go up. Turns out not to be the case, does it? Right, let's get into Zoopla. There's some interesting stuff in Zoopla's house price index that came out today. Where are we? Let's see if I can get it like this. No, like that. Like that. There we are. So Zoopla's house price index came out today. And I'll skip through this. I'm not just going to read out what's on screen, although a lot of you are listening to this on audio podcast. So key takeaways: lowest mortgage rates for 15 months. God, 15 years would be different. 15 months. So lowest mortgage rates in just over a year. Boost sales market activity. Yeah. Buyer demand and sales agreed up 25% since 2023. Now that sounds like, wow, that's a big jump. You got to remember 2023 was one of the lowest years for property transactions on record. Okay, so we're not back up to normal levels yet. We're still at below average transaction levels. But yes, activity is up. Sales agreed is up. That is good news. Doesn't include fall throughs, but it is good news. Buyers remain price sensitive. Quite right. Maybe my message is getting out there. Maybe, just maybe my message is getting out there and buyers are being more price sensitive, which will keep price rises in check. Average UK house price, which includes Scotland and Northern Ireland, by the way, almost 1% in a year. So it's 0.7% is their exact figure. Now, I want to just point out that a few days ago, Nationwide said it was 3.2%. Which one's right? Well, neither of them. They measure them in different ways. None of the house price indices are right. They are all, you're comparing oranges with apples, with pears, with bananas, with kiwis, with kumquats when you look at the different house price indices, okay? Now, in affordable areas, house prices rise 2.5%. Yeah, I can believe that. So lower price places where there's more demand for the cheaper homes, I can see that happening. Almost a third of homes for sale are chain-free as investors, in other words, landlords, and second homeowners sell in the face of recent and possible tax changes. Okay, that's great news if you're a buyer. Chain-free is good. Some coastal and rural areas see supply of homes for sale up 40% on last year. That's supply, guys. So for those of you who only work on simple supply and demand, put that in your supply and demand pipe and smoke that. The outlook is for modest price growth and steady growth in sales. Okay, that's where I slightly disagree with Richard here. By the way, I invited Richard to be a guest this evening to talk this through, and he replied and said he would have loved to, but can't make it, unfortunately. But I might have him on the show again soon. So Richard Donnell is the research director at Zoopla and is in charge of so he's part of the team that designed the original automatic valuation tool, which I don't like, and he's behind this the Zoopla house price index. And what I must credit Zoopla's house price index with is that they certainly have a larger sample size and go to greater lengths to come up with an accurate index than any of the others. Right? It's doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean I agree with it. I just think it's the least shit index out there. Although it's still of no use to an individual when they're talking about the national prices, as I will illustrate now. The average house price is 267,000. Now you see that I find that statement grating because it sounds so final. The average house price in the UK is dun 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 to the nearest £100. Right? No, it's just not, because that is a notional average of all different property types combined, right? Now, of all the house price indices, by the way, this is the lowest or second lowest figure. Zoopla and Nationwide roughly agree on that figure. But then you break it down by property type. And what we've got here is that actually flats year on year are up 20 quid, right? At 191,500. Whereas terraced houses are the ones that have gone up the most, 1.4%. Roughly in half, there's your 0.7% average. But that's based on property type. Then you change it by region, which we'll get to in a minute. You'll see that it changes all over again. But there you are. You can see that there was the top in 2022, and it's basically flatlined since then. And again, like I said, actually, an actual house price crash, which I do not expect. In other words, a very sudden drop, which may happen, but I do not expect, is not a good thing on the whole for everybody, because it really it wipes out a lot of people that we don't want to get wiped out. Families with kids. It's not a good thing. So actually flatlining nominal house prices and rising wages, which equals improving affordability, is a good thing. It's the least bad way of achieving better affordability. So what do I wish for? Which is not the same as what I expect. I wish that house prices continue to flatline. At the first time buyer level, at least. Flatline, up slightly, down slightly, whatever. But roughly speaking, if they stay the same, that is the least damaging way for affordability to improve. And I would welcome that. It's not what I'm expecting to happen. I do think the prices are going to come down again, even if the average doesn't. So home buyer demand is up 26% on this time last year. Now, they don't specify exactly how they measure that. If that's just people registering to look for a house, that doesn't really qualify as demand. But they're still comparing apples with apples, so it's worthwhile mentioning that. The average mortgage rate for a 5-year 75% loan-to-value loan compared to a year ago is 4.3% compared to 5.5%. So that's come down by 0.8%. I talked about this. Intense competition among lenders is keeping rates attractive for buyers, especially those with larger amounts of equity. Right, here we are. Look at this. So this is showing that buyer demand has grown faster than stock of homes for sale. But stock of homes, it's been a buyer's market for a long time. There is a lot of stock on the market. So buyer demand up, sales agreed up, flow of new supply 16% up, stock of homes for sale overall 12% up. All right. Now, this is where I want to talk about the reason I disagree with Richard on what's going to happen in the future. So he's saying increased sales activity supporting modest price rises rather than causing any acceleration in home values. Yes, I agree with that observation, and that is definitely what's happening right now. Affordability remains a constraint on house price growth, yes, especially in southern England where home values are already high, yes. And house prices in the southwest, southeast, and east of England are currently lower than they were a year ago. So house prices overall are falling in the south of England and the east of England. Now, I'm just going to skip past all this to show you this graph here because I think it's the most useful, right? And what you've got there on the right-hand side is you've got the average UK amount, and the purple line is this year, the grey line is last year. And so what you see in the headlines is that this one just here, closest to my finger, right? That's what the headline says. And everyone goes, oh, that's what house prices, everyone's house prices are doing that, what the average says. No, look, none of them, not one area is doing that. They're all either doing more or less. And Scotland, which is the tallest one there, the biggest one, showing 2%, 2.1% growth. If you were to take Scotland out and just do England and Wales, then would it still be overall positive, or would that go slightly negative? It would be lower, and more of these would be, so the average figure would change just by taking Scotland out, right? But so you got to look at the regions. Always look at the regions. And if you look at the regions and go, okay, I'm in the eastern, I'm in East Anglia, let's say, where of all the regions in the country, the year-on-year price growth is the lowest, the worst. Actually, price falls, and let's go back up to that where they break down the property types. And I've got the property type that's also growing the lowest, like maybe it's a flat. a leasehold flat, then you can kind of go, okay, I've got the worst end of the stick here. I've got the shortest straw. I've got the worst area in the UK and the worst property type. And you can factor that into your decision, okay? There's a bit more to go on into. So more supply will keep price inflation in check. A fifth of homes currently for sale were previously on the market over the last 2 years. Have a look at this, guys. Have a look at it yourself. I think there's a link below. Go and have a look at it, and just from your own point of view. But look at this. Coastal and rural postal areas, including Truro, Torquay, Exeter, Bournemouth, Lincoln, and Norwich, have all seen available supply increase by over 40%, which is partly a result of tax changes. Annual house price growth is negative in these areas, with the rising supply keeping prices in check. Now, on top of this, what we know is that we can expect a lot more problems because more and more landlords are selling up. So supply is going to keep increasing. And this is the graph of listings, right? Listing status. So 13% are landlords selling a previously rented property. 18% have had a greater than 5% asking price cut. And remember, when people publish a price drop, that's the final option that they have to try and drum up interest in the sale of their property. Right? Published price cuts are where the bargains hide. So, you should be, and again, just disregard the asking price. The market determines the price, not the seller or the agent. But houses that have had their asking prices cut is a signal that the seller needs to sell. Doesn't mean they're definitely going to accept the offer you want to put in, but that's where to go looking. 20% were previously on the market in the last 2 years. That means they're being relisted. They haven't sold and they're relisted. Either they've fallen through or they just didn't sell. 22% have been on the market for more than 6 months. These are the ones. So stuff that's been on for a long time and has had an asking price cut. That's where you want, if you're looking for the best opportunities as a buyer, that's where you want to look. And then about a third are a chain-free listing. Now, one last thing here. House prices will continue to rise slowly. Again, that's a sweeping statement, which is not true because it kind of implies that the whole country's house prices are going to rise. But actually, in this report, it's already said that there are areas where prices are falling. There are parts of the country where they're falling, and there are property types where they're falling. So what I think they mean is the overall average figure will continue to rise slowly. I am more bearish and negative and pessimistic about the economy than Richard is, and for that reason, I don't think they will. They might do for some time. There are a lot of moving parts, including the last piece of news I want to talk about today, which is that the Bank of England, old Mr. Bailey, told the Guardian in an article today that borrowing costs could fall if inflationary pressures continue to ease. Okay, that is not a profound statement. That is not even really news, is it? Borrowing costs could fall if inflationary pressures continue to ease. Yeah, we knew this already. But the market went bananas for it. What? Hang on a second. Where is that? There it is, that tab. A bit more aggressive, right? The Bank of England told the Guardian it could become a bit more aggressive in cutting interest rates if inflation continues to cool. Well, the market went, oh, they're going to slash rates. We're going back to zero. Way! The market has overreacted, in my view, massively. Because he also said, but if stuff kicks off in the Middle East badly enough and there's an oil price shock, then we won't be able to do that. Again, not newsworthy. This is so typical. I mean, the poor man barely has to open his mouth and people react. No matter what he says, they'll find one word And most of the quotes in the headlines scene weren't a bit more aggressive. It was just aggressive. Bailey says rate cutting will be aggressive, or aggressive rate cuts coming, is how it was misinterpreted and misrepresented. But I find what's going on in the Middle East increasingly worrying, increasingly uncertain. They're on a real knife edge, and therefore it's impossible to predict what's going to happen from that point of view. Emmanuel Macron today has actually said that the EU could die. I mean, amazing. Because he's basically said, he's actually said what we've been saying all along, which is both China and America are massively outperforming Europe in terms of economic growth. Maybe it's time to call it, and maybe we need to do something differently. And he says that they're over-regulating and under-investing. I think it's too late, mate. I think it's too late. It's too late. I think the European economy is absolutely stuffed as a whole. I mean, France and Germany are incredibly. I was talking to Stig about this evening. And Stiggy and I are going to be doing. Oh, by the way, for those of you who were watching last night's live stream, where I talked about the Stig and Charlie show, the Charlie and Stig show, that's going to be chargeable. Our first episode, which is going to be on the 16th of October, is going to be free. It's going to be the freebie to give everyone a taste of what's going to be coming. All right. So the first one, put in your diaries, it's going to be probably 10 p.m. on Wednesday, the 16th of October. Will be the first. He may well appear on one of my regular live streams briefly before then. He'll be doing his contribution for next Wednesday's weekly workshop, where he does it, the pre-recorded bit. He may or may not just appear anyway, sporadically on these. Like, this is a sporadic video, right? I'm doing this because actually a lot of news came out that was worth talking about. By the way, everybody, it's Friday tomorrow, and to those of you who have already signed up, hang on, just quickly let me put this in here. You'll be getting a newsletter, the 5 Fact Friday newsletter tomorrow. That is on screen now. That is the where you can sign up for it, and the link is below in the description as well. And that's 5 Fact Friday coming out tomorrow. And I'm not promising anything, but there might also be an exclusive video included in the only with the 5 Fact Friday newsletter. Okay, so it's the newsletter will happen every week, come hell or high water. That's going to happen. No questions asked. That's a commitment. The Wednesday evening 8 p.m. show every week. That's a commitment. Friday newsletter. That's a commitment. Other stuff is sporadic. But there may be a newsletter only video that I do. It'll depend on a few things each week. But yeah, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get access to that exclusive video from me, because I want you all to sign up to my newsletter. I really do. It's the best and most reliable way to keep in touch with you. I promise never to spam anybody. I write the email myself. I click send myself. It is a personal email from me to you. It's full of stuff. I try to lay it out as easily to make it very easy to scan, read, and just pick up the bits you're interested in. I've got links to all of the sources, and the whole goal of it is to make sure that if you are moving home, you are always, just with that one email, you're up to date with everything you need to know that's happening in the moving market. All right. It's just basically, I watch the entire housing market's news and politics and economics and everything else, so that you don't have to. Okay. And I know a lot of you haven't got time to watch videos as well. So that's the purpose of the 5 Fact Friday newsletter. But when I can, I'm going to include a newsletter only video that will be embedded in the newsletter for everyone who's watched it. So please join my newsletter mailing list. It's personal from me to you every Friday. And I hope you'll enjoy it. Right, do we now have some other comments? Okay, I'm going to wrap this up quite soon. Comments or questions about what I've been saying, please. Let's just try and catch up. No, okay. I see. Sorry, I'm picking on this. Your life jacket first. Are you a sailor or are you a pilot? Your life jacket first before you put everyone else on. Banks seem to keep printing. No, that's not true. They don't. They aren't. They haven't. The Bank of England stopped the money printing, the quantitative easing, in November 2022, I believe. I don't understand where this misunderstood assumption comes from. Oh, the banks just keep printing money. No. They stopped. They've been unprinting. They've been unprinting the money for a while. Yes. So one of the factors, so ZZA says, if stamp duty increases considerably, the smell of house crash could start coming from far. So on the 1st of April next year, the temporary stamp duty threshold reduction is ending and stamp duty thresholds will be reverting back down to where they were before. Is that going to have a massive effect? I don't think so. There'll be a little bit of an effect, people trying to get in and get their purchases over the line before that happens. That's probably already well underway, because if you are not already in the process of your transaction exchanging, if you're not in that process, you've probably already missed that deadline, unless you've got a chain-free deal and a very good conveyancer and all of your ducks in a row lined up, as I advise everybody to do. Patricia, sterling didn't drop because Bailey said something. How do people buy this bullshit? Okay, fascinating. Thank you. Could you elaborate? Could you just put in a comment explaining why you think sterling dropped? I don't agree or disagree. I'm just interested in your view. Why do you think sterling dropped today if it wasn't because he said something? That's what Bloomberg reported as well. Oh, thank you, Sir Fleshmorph. You're quite right. I've missed that bit out. On X, you mentioned that cash buyers dropped 40% numbers. You haven't mentioned that here. What's the source? So the source is, I will find it for you. Here it is. Thank you. One day, when this channel's bigger with more viewers, by the way, you miserable bastards, last night, none of you clicked subscribe. And I was like, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, because it really helps. I think, does everyone sit there watching going, yeah, he doesn't mean me. I do. I mean you. Yes, you. If you're a regular viewer of my channel and you're not subscribed, could you, please? Won't cost you anything. Really help me out. Shut up, Charlie, and show the thing. So here is the source. It's on the Negotiator website, and it's from... so the number of cash buyers has fallen up to 45% in some areas of the UK, according to land registry figures examined by a leading consultancy. So this story just came out today. And the number of people buying homes without mortgages has decreased by 45% since 2013. New research from SPF Private Clients revealed. So in these areas, the falls are especially prominent with Harlow, Barking Dagenham, Thurrock, Slough, Luton, Crawley, Stevenage, Waltham, Forest. The number or the percentage of cash sales, as in non-mortgage sales, has dropped a long way, right? Now, this is interesting because a lot of people thought that actually what's going to happen is that when house prices stop going up, the rich are going to swoop in and buy it all up with their cash. No, they're not, because that's not a smart thing to do. You don't want an illiquid, high-maintenance asset if you are cash rich. So yeah, that's where that story came from. And they go on to say that actually there are some areas, in contrast, Scotland and some of London's wealthiest areas, the number of cash purchases increased. Inverclyde, Hart, Solihull, Redcar and Cleveland, City of Aberdeen, Kensington and Chelsea, Gateshead, of all places, and City of London, they've all had they've significant increases in cash buyers in that time. So yeah, there's that story. Thank you for the reminder on that. Let's get back to the comments and the questions. What have we got here? Shally Marry Daddy says, so true. I'd love to know what you're referring to. Something that I said or something that someone else said. Oh. Jay Tor says, sign up and you get a free Giant Sports Direct mug for 6 Slurp Saturday. It's not hot, but I'm going to slurp anyway. Basically, if you are one of the 0.01% that suffers from misophonia, whenever you see me pick it up, just mute it quickly. Just mute it. I don't want to upset you guys, but you're outnumbered. Sorry, it's a democracy here. Nikki Knight says, you're in touch with many estate agents. How many EAs have shut up shops since 2022? Can you give some interesting facts to the state of the industry? So there was a 30% rise in agents that closed their doors last. It's a very weird time. So the estate agency industry is going through a slow metamorphosis, the kind of which it's never seen before. There's a real power shift happening. A lot's changing. I mean, we'll look back on this period as a time of great change in agency. There are a lot more one-man, one-woman bands setting up. There are a lot of jobs being lost because transaction volumes are down. Even though they're on the increase, they're still down on where they needed to be. Pipelines are taking a very long time to actually come through. So, there are good agents are always busy. Okay. So you might say, Charlie, or you might be an agent watching this, go, Charlie, that's nonsense. We're really, really busy. That's fantastic news. And I massively support and applaud any agent who is busy in this market because it means you're doing something right. But busy doesn't automatically translate into successful transactions, okay? Because if you're tying up deals and then they're falling apart, then you're very, very busy without actually getting anywhere. So busy, I often think busy just means disorganized. There we are. Anyway, so I'll come back to that. Patricia says, have another monetary rumble. The dollar is up. Carry trade. China and Japan economies toast. Deborah M. Hello, Deborah. New name I don't recognize. Welcome. Says, I think markets, lending, and house prices will fall in the next year, 18 months. We have passed the height of prices in many areas. First-time buyers are priced out, and risk of negative equity will drive prices down. In some areas, I absolutely agree with you. Not in all, but in some areas. Definitely, that's going to happen more in the south than it does in the north. Yes, Tina B, land registry figures does mean lagged data. Absolutely. Wilman Lung says, do you think London new built flats are F ****ED? Can the leasehold reform help? I'm the forthcoming renters' rights bill and leasehold reform. I'm more optimistic about the leasehold reform than I am about the renters' rights bill. The renters' rights bill is well intended, but poorly conceived, and is going to be poorly executed, and is going to make things worse for landlords and tenants and rent prices, and is stupid overall. And they're not listening to the industry, who knows what they're talking about, who want to improve the market as well. They're just going, no, you're a landlord, you're bad, I'm not listening to you, I'm a politician, I know better. But the leasehold reform, if what they've outlined they're going to do happens, and if they don't cock it up, then I'm optimistic about the effect that leasehold reform could have on leasehold flats in London. Mike Dennington asks, in my opinion, is it better to look for a single person estate agent or a chain? It always comes down to the individual who is responsible for selling your home. Some of the very best agents I've ever known, like outstandingly good, professional, brilliant agents, work in large corporations. More towards the high end than the low end of the market, but companies like Hamptons, some of the best agents I've ever met work in Hamptons, Knight Frank and places like that. So it's never wise to generalize and say big better than small or small better than big or whatever, right? Because amongst the individual estate agents, you've got the same spectrum where some of them are outstandingly good. Even though they're a one-person operation, they know their market, they know the job, and they get clients' properties sold within the required time frame at the best price the market has to offer. How do you know they've done that? Because they got competing offers. But you also get absolute lost for words to describe the sheer incompetence that you can come across with some people. Don't make the mistake of thinking that because someone's a nice person, that means they're going to be good at their job. If you're selling your house, you don't need a nice person. You need someone who's good at the job. If they're also nice, brilliant. But good at their job first, nice second. John Kay says, what are you expecting to see in the forthcoming budget that will have a significant impact on the housing market, Charlie? Actually, every time I ask myself this question, I sort of shudder and go, oh God, it's going to be awful. It's just going to be awful. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to do stuff with inheritance tax, probably. They're almost certainly, based on the sentiment, this is not my opinion, but based on everything that I've read, almost certainly going to be doing something to do with capital gains tax, because they've backed themselves into a corner on all the other taxes. It's one of the only ones that they can go for. But whether they're going to be doing anything to stimulate the market for first-time buyers, that is not a good idea if they do. They seem so misguided about how to handle the private renter sector that it's almost, and they seem so enthralled to large corporations and funds and banks that they're probably going to be sucking on the big D of the corporates, which is not good for the housing market. Really not good. Are they going to do a new Help to Buy type scheme? I don't think so. That would be disastrous if they did. It would be really bad news. Are they going to do a more? There's already a mortgage guarantee scheme in place. They did talk about it. They did mutter they're going to do it. But so far, everything they've done has been stuff they didn't say that they would do. They said they would not cut the pensioners' winter fuel allowance, and it's the first thing that they did. So, I mean, they're nothing if not, well, they're kind of predictable in some ways and unpredictable in others. I don't have any strong expectations or predictions of what's going to happen in the budget, other than it's going to be an utter car crash. Because a woman who was reprimanded for abusing a corporate credit card is now in charge of the country's economy. I wonder if it was the same person who appointed her as appointed Polly Neat as chief executive of Shelter. I am genuinely in just trepidation of what's going to happen in the budget. Yeah, Deborah M says redundancy in production and core services indicates the start of the slippery slope. Losing steel manufacturing is an indicator for building sector and lead indicator. Yeah, and new building numbers are down. Just reading through comments. Yeah, so Zaz ZZA says recently querying the HM land registry for the latest completed transactions, and I got transactions from June 2023 that seems like they are still catching up. Unbelievable. That's right. It takes them over a year to finish registering transactions at the land registry at the moment. What have we got? Lots of you chatting with each other. Cool Dude 1995 says, first time buyer, got an offer accepted, but the next door house is just sold for 100 grand more, even though it's identical. Historic sold prices on the street suggested next door price as well. Did I spot a bargain? I mean, congratulations. Well done. Maybe you're right place, right time. Got a seller situation. What this proves, I mean, if they are actually identical, I mean, you know, they're I mean, unless they're brand new builds, they're never identical. If they've been lived in, there's always changes. But yeah, it may well be that you've got an absolute bargain. I can't answer that without knowing a lot more information. But it may be that there are, despite that they are physically identical, that there are other problems, or other differences between them. But well done, congratulations. Jay Tor says the government needs to stay the hell out of the housing market. Absolutely agree. Any help for first-time buyers just means inflated prices and more competition and bidding. Let the market correct itself. Yes, agreed. Right, guys. That's an hour. It's coming up to my bedtime. Let me ask you again. I've never asked this before, but I now am, because I've got regular shows and I want to make sure that everyone moving house gets to hear what I'm saying, to try and help make the market move more freely, people move more easily, get more transactions done, because that benefits everyone. So please sign up to my newsletter if you haven't already at that address or at the link in the description below. Otherwise, if you are a buyer, make sure you've got your mortgage in principle and your conveyancer selected before you offer, because that massively improves the chance of your offer being accepted, whether you are competing against other buyers or whether you are the only offer going in with a low offer. These are things that cost nothing extra to do if you're going to be buying, but massively improve the chances of your offer being accepted. Don't forget my first time buyer offer email template. Just search MHWC offer email and you'll find it. And if you're a seller, don't overprice. Don't believe the overvaluing estate agents. Don't ask them how much they think your house is worth, because they don't know. Nobody does. Nobody does. Okay? Only the market knows how much your house is going to sell for. And the only way to find that out is to get competing bidders. So the question to ask your sellers is, the question to ask the agent you're talking to is, what is your process for ensuring that we get competing bidders? Because I know that the market will decide the price of my house. What's your process for that? And what do you recommend as the launch marketing price to make sure we attract the most buyers? Because the asking price has nothing to do with the sale price. Remember that, right? What's more important to you as a seller? Your asking price or how much you actually sell it for? Just please, the more sellers that get that message, the more of you will sell for more money than if you put on an overinflated asking price and do that and just hope. And like so many, you just sitting there 6 months later going, there's nothing but tumbleweed blowing past the front door. I could keep talking, but I'm going to go, guys. It's late. Have a good one. Thanks for watching. Watch out for 5 Fact Friday in your inboxes tomorrow. And otherwise, I will probably... I will definitely see you all next week. Don't miss next Wednesday. And follow me on X for daily updates. Moving Home. Just search, you'll find it. And otherwise, have a great night. It's just so hard, but it's got 700 of you watching me live. I'm like, I hate to leave you when you're all there, but I've got to go. Have a wonderful night, guys. Please do click the like button, do subscribe, because it helps, and it doesn't cost you anything to do it, and you'll help spread the word and help more people move more easily. Thanks, guys. See you on the next one.